Hi, and welcome back to another episode. It's so good to have you all back listening in, and thank you so much for doing so. I am joined today by Philippa Sutherland. My goodness, I actually realised that you're over in New Zealand. I didn't just realise that. I knew that, but what I've just realised as I'm saying this is I spend quite a lot of my time speaking to people in New Zealand, be it friends or business connections or otherwise. So this has become like a regular habit for me to speak to people across the ditch, as they say, right, over in New Zealand. So Philippa is joining me today, bringing absolute wealth of experience and background in all things leadership and, my goodness, the motherhood journey and actually juggling all of that. Having spent 20 plus years, I'll just cap it at that. I think I'm right to say that, Philippa, 20 plus years in senior global marketing roles, working for household brands that many of us would be familiar with, Nestle and Unilever and the likes out there, climbing the leadership ladder, and then more recently, although it's not new, but certainly more recent in those years, is the founder of WellSpirit, which is New Zealand's #1 career network for mothers juggling work and motherhood and all those good things that are very challenging for so many of us. And I have a feeling that the threads of our conversation today, Philippa, are probably going to draw on probably all of the above, right? Like we could thread on the boundaries that requires, motherhood struggles in work and trying to build a career and raise children, keep your own kind of self-well-being alive and all of those good things. So really looking forward to unpacking our conversation and seeing where we go with things today. So Philippa, thank you so much for your time in being here and joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura. It's so great to be here and to have what I think is going to be a really engaging conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to say, but I'm going to say this is our second time recording this, because the first time we tried to record this episode, it didn't work out because there was a big storm where you are in New Zealand, right? And it just completely blew the internet. It was all laggy and sticky, and we just decided, nah, that ain't going to cut it. We've got to re-record it and just go afresh. Fingers crossed for today that the signal for both of us, stays intact and we can keep going. Good stuff. Philippa, have I missed anything? Is there anything in terms of my brief intro to you there, summarising 20 plus years experience in a couple of minutes, right? So is there anything I've missed that you think is important to bring in, that you want to bring in to share before we get into the crux of it?
Yeah, it really sounds like a long time, doesn't it? But yeah, a career definitely that started out in New Zealand and took me overseas for around 15 years of that period. And that was just a really fabulous learning opportunity to work with really amazing leaders that really were experts and leaders in their fields. And then to come back to New Zealand and bring back all of what I've learned has been a really great journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Brit, right? So I've done the opposite, and kind of started my career in the UK and then moved over to Perth in Western Australia. So yeah, fantastic. I just love that. Bringing all of the wisdom and experience that you pick up from being exposed to different people, different companies, different way of doing things, and even though for you, as I understand it, it was the same company umbrella for a lot of those shifts, you still see things to be done very differently, right? In different cultures and
Yeah,
business
absolutely. There's
workings.
so much cultural nuance to navigate and scale and ways of working. And I think it's one of those things that you can never really underestimate those changes and shifts also.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And so I'm going to ask the question to kick us off, Philippa, and being on the Contagious Leader podcast, I always like to understand from other people, when you hear that phrase, when you hear the phrase contagious leader or contagious leadership, what does it mean to you? Like what resonates when you hear it?
Yeah, look, I just reflect on my own experience, and I'm like thinking about all of those leaders that I feel exhibited contagious leadership. For me, it really comes back to, who are those leaders that I would talk about to other people? Quite literally, they were the ones that were just so top of mind and ones that I would highly recommend other people I knew to work for. And all of them exhibited and had a really high sense of self-worth. And I mean, that's just ultimate confidence, and therefore are truly what I would describe as authentic leaders. Authentic in who they were and their leadership style and how they would bring their full version of themselves into the office. And I shared last time with you, Laura, the example of one of my leaders who I still truly admire, the one that would wear like beautiful sparkly shoes every day into the office, every color you could imagine. And that was just her statement, but something that was just truly admirable and just really bold at the time. And that was her statement. So highly memorable. But beyond that, I think what Contagious Leadership is all about is just creating and making that sense of team. In other words, putting their team before themselves, because those leaders know that they can really only get to where they want to go with their team, and really celebrating all of those magical moments that the team achieves to the point where those team members don't want to go anywhere else or work for anyone else because they've got such a strong team culture. And I think the other thing that really stands out for me for Contagious Leadership is just them leading by example, leaning into tough conversations, standing up for their team, and putting themselves first. So being great examples of exhibiting, what great well-being looks like in the workplace, and just, just making sure that they are putting themselves first and leading by example at all times.
Yeah, my goodness, so much there, and I completely agree from my interpretation and what I resonate with and preach, if you like, is all of that and above. And yes, I absolutely do. I smiled when you said around the example of your leader that you used to work with, who used to wear, I remember them as specifically as being red sparkly shoes for some reason. So it's a good story to tell because it's memorable, and clearly this person has stood out to you. Like I don't know how many years ago that was, it's irrelevant now, but that person has stood out for showing up as being themselves. And I can imagine potentially there was a time when that was pretty bold, like wearing these red sparkly or whatever color sparkly shoes into an office environment when it was probably the age of a grey suit, a black suit, or a navy suit with a white collar and cuff.
Absolutely, everyone conforming to the uniform of the time, right?
Yeah, and this person chose to do something different and be themselves and show up. And now it wasn't just that, of course, that's made this person memorable and the good contagious leader that you were referring and recommending to other people, but it was their statement, and that was almost, I would understand that to be almost symbolic of their self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really iconic at the time also, but memorable, right?
Yeah, true. And so, I mean, the very first thing that you said is contagious. They have a high level of self-worth. And I'm just like, yes, amazing. Like I could talk around that for years, which is a good thing because that's what I coach on. But I mean, have you had many examples there where in your career where you've seen it where the opposite, you've had individuals that you've worked with or maybe that you've had as peers, whatever the connection has been, where you could see that they weren't showing up as themselves, maybe you've done it yourself, and what that kind of looked and felt like by comparison?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think everyone actually goes through stages in their career where their own sense of self-worth or achievement or self-awareness is really high, and often it comes with huge transformational shifts. For example, where all of a sudden you might be moving into a new industry or a new role where all of a sudden it's like, oh, do I really know everything that I know? Right? Like, how can I prove myself? So I think it's around just knowing what your strengths are, and it's being able to have that mindset that you can continually call in when you need to go, I've got to where I am today because of what I've achieved, and nothing else has changed. I am who I am, and being able to do that. But in saying that, there are sometimes things that come sideways and you're not prepared for, and things shift, right? And I would probably say that so I look back on my career, I think the biggest curveball for me was moving from what was always a me first, single-minded career, let's get as far as I can as fast as possible, to going into a career as a new mum. And that return to work phase of my life was a very interesting time, because all of a sudden I think my values were being challenged in the sense of, if I really want to put myself first and work long hours and do everything I can to really perform at a high level, then what about the values that I have that I want to call on and show that I'm being an amazing mum? And I think for me, the greatest challenge that I've ever encountered in the workplace was that tension between being an amazing career first, ambitious woman to a but what about me being an amazing mom to my greatest ability? And I think that tension started for me personally to call in a little bit of doubt. It's like, well, which one's leading and how am I feeling about that? And I think there's probably so many other moms out there that go through that stage, because I don't think we're really supported to work through that before we encounter that sudden challenge of balance that we encounter in the workplace.
Yeah, my goodness, so true. And I know you're very much across this, Philippa, and for those listening that aren't, I don't have children, right? So I'm not a mother, I haven't gone through that journey myself, but I've worked with so many women that have, and friends and family, and of course all those good things that have. And I can only imagine that values shift. Well, I used to be this, or values, and maybe even an identity shift, right? That sort of, well, who am I now? Am I still a high achieving leader? And what does that mean? Because I'm also a mom, and what does that mean? And almost, it sounds like you almost felt like, sorry, you had to have, it was a one or which one, rather than how can I have both?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And being comfortable with the decision that you make as well. And I think that takes a lot of, really deep thinking and working it and sounding it out with other people to come to that conclusion. And then working around, what works at home and what works in the workplace to build that future career where you can really thrive.
Yeah. And so from your experience when you went through navigating that process, was there anything in particular that worked for you that you was, where you got that support?
Yeah, I think definitely for me, I was really instilling a lot of, I guess, meditation to really go deep and find out what really matters to me, but also a lot of journaling. And actually, a pivotal moment for me was when I was very late at night journaling. And it was sort of almost to the point where I was just doing so much for everybody and for everyone that I actually wrote in my diary, like, my spirits died. And I realized at that point that I really needed to make some big decisions around where I wanted to go in my life. That actually for almost 2 years, no, actually 2.5 years, I had been putting family life as a really big secondary thing, and that life is really short. You only have children for a certain number of years, and I didn't want to let that go. And that actually was a huge decision point for me. But I was lucky to figure that out quite early on, and to be able to leverage those resources that I was already sort of using in my life. But I think for a lot of women, we're all trying to figure it out alone. But actually, we're all having to navigate those same questions. And I think that's what then made me realize that, what is that support system in place for women navigating the workplace? And that really was a light bulb moment in my mind to say, actually, what is out there? And if nothing's out there, then who's going to build it? And I realized that that's actually something I'm really passionate about building, which is a supportive space to bring mums navigating the workplace together.
Yeah, which is WellSpirit, right?
It is WellSpirit, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. And so was that, I'm curious to know, was that a trigger for you to do that immediately, or was that something that's come later for you over the years?
Yeah, it's come a little bit after the fact. I think it was sort of through that experience, the first and foremost priority for me was spending more than half an hour a day with my child. And so it was clear that I just wanted to spend that time. I wanted to do drop-offs at a later hour than an earlier hour, and a hustle to get to my job. And I wanted to be able to go earlier and have more time every afternoon. So that was the priority. But it was also a great opportunity for me to start to crystallize what great support would look like for mums figuring out how to really make careers work for them through motherhood, and also what would be needed to help them look at their career path and grow their careers long term without having to need to either, downshift or step out of careers altogether. So it was a crystallization period, and now I'm very clear on what I'm creating now and building. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love those stories, right? And typically the kind of founder's story of, this was a problem that I experienced and therefore I created this thing, and here it is, and kind of birth it out into the world in that sense, and try and test it and learn and fail and all the good things that no doubt happen along the journey too, all the fun stuff, but fundamentally in service of other people to help them with a problem that you once experienced. I mean, yeah, kudos to you, and full respect for that, most definitely. And I shared to you the very first time that we connected, not in our first attempt of recording this, but the very first time we connected, that to my mind, that's contagious leadership. That is contagious leadership, because it's somebody that's putting their neck on the line, right? It's not an easy decision, I'm sure, to leave a corporate career of all the safety and the comfort and the familiarity and all that good stuff that comes with that territory, to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go off and do this new and different thing now, and take all the risk that comes with that, in service of wanting to support and provide that to other people. That's contagious, because that's you being authentic, that's you leading the way, paving the way. Full respect to that, most certainly.
And I think, going back to that diary or sort of journaling moment I had, which was around, I kind of feel like my spirit's dying. It was kind of like, am I really doing work that lights my fire and I'm truly passionate about, and I have a clear purpose driving me? And it was like, right now, the brand that I'm working on, it's not lighting my fire fully, whereas my previous career always had. And again, it was like, actually, how do I feel about supporting other women? And I'm just like, I've just got to do it. And I'm just so passionate about it, because it's hard. It's like, it's such a motherhood is such a transformational process and journey. And it's like, we need to be wrapping up mothers with all the care that they can possibly have in those moments, through those earlier years of motherhood. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm all for it. I'm there. And I want to provide all those resources and the toolkits and the worksheets and anything that just can help inform better decision making around career choices, that can help them feel more confident in the workplace to ask for, whether it's the leave or the flexible work or whatever it is, that will help equip them with the careers that can really support them being a really great mum.
Yeah, and having both, rather than like you felt like where it had to be this choice of one or the other.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Critical. Yeah, and you said it twice, and it kind of hits my soul as you say, my spirit's dying. Like, oh, that's not a good feeling, right? I mean, you're laughing now, but I'm sure at the time it's like, whoa, this is heavy. Like, this doesn't feel good at all.
And I think I was really fortunate, because when I was at Unilever, it was such an intense focus on every brand being really purpose-led, every individual in that organization being really purposefully minded about how they're showing up at work every day. And I think that just drummed into me to say, actually, life's, what is life if you're not really sharp and clear on your purpose? And so for me, then that decision process to go and do a startup and have that purpose was a lot probably clearer cut than for a lot of founders. But I also love the journey, because every day I'm waking up and I'm having to do things that I've never done before. And a lot of the time it's really scary, but I'm also mindful that every time I feel scared, it's like, that's great, because I'm going to learn from it, right? And it's almost as if the more you lean into it, the more you get used to it. And then the more it's like, well, I'm just going to wake up feeling a little bit scared, but that's okay, right? I can make mistakes. It's okay. And so it's been a huge and remarkable, I guess, training ground for building more like mental resilience. And if I sort of look back on my day and go, actually, I've done something for the first time, or I've made a mistake and I've learned really quickly from it, then that for me is, I guess, building more leadership and building me and growing me as a person too. So it's really fulfilling.
Yeah, really fulfilling, that personal growth journey. I was having this very conversation with somebody this morning, actually a client of mine, around that that exact thing, and that personal development journey, that leadership, be it in your own business or a brand new venture or in the corporate world, no matter where it is, there's just that leadership journey, how much you learn about yourself and how much you grow yourself, like phenomenal. If I think back to, my goodness, where I was, who I was then when I started my leadership journey, I don't know now, 18, 19 years ago, whatever it would be now, to now, like, oh my goodness, I'm a completely different person. Certainly inside. It might not show outside, but certainly inside. And that self-belief and that self-esteem and that self-worth and all those good things that you mentioned around being that core foundation. And it's true. If we don't have that, we're never going to be able to show up authentically. We're never going to back ourselves. We're never going to get to where we want to be, because something will come up, too much, too little, too late. No. All those hurdles that we can put in our way, kind of just self-sabotaging to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. But we know that the growth happens on the outside of our comfort zone, and exactly what you're saying there. And you take those steps, you do something new. It doesn't matter if you fail, but yet you learn from it. Like, that is where the power and the magic is, right? And the more that we do it, I talk around compound confidence. The more that we do these things, like
I was just about to jump in. It's all about those small steps and those habits forming. Because sometimes, what if we think, oh my goodness, I'm working too much, I'm working overtime. Let me just fundamentally reprioritize everything, and everything will be perfect the next day. But it's not, because actually a lot of our behavior is sort of subconscious. And if we're not great at holding boundaries, then just reprioritizing one day and hoping magic will happen the next day is not really. It's all about working on those subconscious sort of like, or bringing the conscious of that mindset to be able to really understand what's creating that kind of almost scope creep, or the picking up of new projects when you've already delegated them off your plate. So yeah, I think that's the work that is really needing to be done a lot of the time, isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't it so true? Yeah. And the boundaries piece, I say to people, you don't need boundaries. Boundaries are not the answer to your work-life balance problem. They're not. Confidence is the answer to your work-life balance problem, because the boundary is like the Band-Aid, and you could try it and you might do it for a little while, and you might say no, push back more, leave work on time, do the kids drop off in the morning and then go to work. You might do that for a couple of weeks, and then if you don't have the confidence to maintain that, and you keep taking on more, and you feel like you're letting your team down if you don't show up at the 8 a.m. meeting every time, blah, 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 whatever, it ain't gonna last, right? It ain't gonna last. Yeah. And so, Philippa, I would love to know and this might be from your own career or from what you see in the women that you work with now, for mothers juggling work, what are the consistent challenges out there? I mean, we know at the root a lot of it comes down to self-worth and confidence, but kind of more higher level or surface level than that, what are they experiencing day to day? What's the challenges that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, I think society conditions us to believe that we need to be the perfect moms, right? So if we're not meeting our own internal expectations of what we believe a perfect mum looks like, then we're often really hard on ourselves, or we're overperforming in the sense of trying too hard to do everything that we don't actually really have time for. And that might be doing extra special cake baking for you know what I mean, for like the daycare stall or whatever it is in the weekends. And so it creates a lot of internal pressure and a little bit of anxiety. And I think what I see a lot talking to a huge number of moms is that it's just that general sense of overwhelm, and really not knowing how to deal with that level of overwhelm, or how to navigate it, or how to change things to get that work-life integration that they need to really thrive. And I think a lot of it comes from just, first of all, having that self-awareness of actually just owning it and going, far out, this is tough, and being able to share a little bit of what that load looks like with other women who are really going through the same and all trying to figure it out, right? Figure out motherhood, because that's such a big change. Like, how do you be just a really great mom, the mom that you want to be, and how do you have that thriving career? And I think a lot of it can come from the sharing of a learned experience, and the acceptance that all mums are struggling, and there's no perfect mum who's got it figured out, right? And I think a lot of career motherhood, at some points, and maybe for 6 months, it might be for a year, that sometimes we do make a few trade-offs and compromises. But, life is long. And if we decide to do one thing for a couple of years, and for some mums, it might be a career break, or other mums, it might be working flexi time. But that's just only for a short period of time, and things change, and kids grow up, and they actually grow up really fast, and all of a sudden, they want their own independence, and then you're free to reclaim that career that you had so many years ago. So there's no right way, but it's the acceptance of that. Every woman's trying to figure it out, and the more that we can support each other and lean into experiences and maybe mistakes that other women have found like they've made along the way, the more that we can feel more comfortable giving our best, to the point where we're owning it, we're doing our best, we're okay. But also where it's not okay, we're reaching out and getting support and help. And that might be to better advocate for yourself in the workplace. It might be actually really figuring out, you want flexible work, but what is that? Is that 9 to 3? Is it 2 days a week? Is it remote working? There's just so many options, but it's sometimes just great to work that through. And back to, the identity and values piece, right? Like, what is it that will make you feel really fulfilled and really happy at the end of the day? And so I just really want to create a network where all of those conversations are happening and all the resources and that the expertise is on hand to help, I think what are fundamentally big questions one has to ask themselves and big decisions that people sometimes need to make around family and around careers.
Yeah, and personalizing it, right? So I love what you said there around thinking around, well, what type of mum do I want to be? What in my world I would say, what kind of leader do you want to be, right? Like it's setting the vision, so you're aiming for it, so that then again you've got that, you can anchor back into that, and to your point earlier on, having that purpose. That purpose then is what can continue to drive you even during the hard times when things notoriously get tough or more difficult or what have you. You're anchored down into that so that you know where you're going. And my words, you're running your own race. You're not worrying about what she's doing or he's doing or what have you. You're able to focus on where you're going, your own why, to you, your family, your kids, yourself, all the good things. Much easier, a much easier path to or road to navigate than sort of shooting in the dark, right? With this idea of, well, what does everyone else around here do? Okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll do that then, and notoriously,
absolutely. Or just being too ready to accept if the workplace is changing around you, and all of a sudden your role becomes smaller, or you're being downgraded, to actually go, actually, what is my worth, right? Like, is this still the company that's really honoring my wealth of knowledge and expertise, and appreciating that, this sometimes can happen to a woman in the workplace. And it's going, actually, no, I'm better than that, right? Like, what are those options for me? And really being true to what does great, what does a great career look like? And what elements can I have now? What elements do I need to create along the path?
Yeah. And I would encourage people as well to think around the fact that I feel like there's this, and I probably would have done it myself, over the years, and have this thought over, well, I have my career and then I can take a career break for raising children, for whatever it might be, redundancy, you name it. Any of these things that might happen to us or that we choose to kind of take on board for ourselves. There's often this sense that a career will stop and then this one will start over here and then I'll come back to it. And I encourage people to think about it. No, it's one continuous line. It's your life. That's what it is. It's just your life. It is one continuous line. And whether it's a step out to raise children and that's your job for the next God knows how many years, or whether it's a step backwards because you want less pressure for a while, whether it's a change to another industry, no matter what it, or a period of unemployment for whatever reason, no matter what it is, it's still the same line. You're still living your life and it's still the same career line and lifeline in that sense. And I find that often helps people, it certainly helps me, but I find it helps people to become almost accepting of any of these changes or impacts that might happen, and rather than seeing it like, oh, like I had to put that on hold while I did this, because as we've said at the start, even things like businesses, side hustles, raising children, you learn so much about, you're still developing yourself as an individual, and all of those things help when you get back to, or whatever the day job might be, right? So the evolution of yourself as an individual, no matter what's happening, is still on the same line.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly it. I think when you become a mother, for example, all of a sudden your world almost encloses around you, because that transformational change of becoming a mother is so intense, right? And your world is around your baby and figuring out how to become a mother, because you don't actually get taught. And there's just so much change. And all of a sudden it feels as though like what would normally be 5 years feels like kind of just 1 year, because you're so in the moment. But actually, if you can kind of take that step back and go, right, okay, if I have to make choices around my career, it's only just a couple of years and what could be the next 20, 30 years of my career moving forward. And being able to frame it that way all of a sudden creates this wealth of choice and comfort, in a sense of it's not forever, and opens up so many possibilities. And that's kind of the view I want to help women to look at, in terms of the enormity of options of career paths, but also knowing that if you take a break, it's just for a couple of years and you can still, go back to that path and go back to the trajectory of what you were initially planning for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you see from your lens now, Philippa, do you see though that is a difficulty for women, that the receptance receptiveness, acceptance maybe from the employers? Is there still a pushback of any kind that actually makes it more harder for them?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think there is such a diverse range of experiences that women have in the workplace. From the workplaces that are just completely open and accommodating, and women can, turn up at 10 o'clock in the office and leave at 2:30 to pick up their kids from daycare. Those roles are there and those companies are there that are hugely supportive, to the other ones that just will not even allow enough remote working to help women manage the domestic load, share it with their partner, whatever that looks like, just to keep the wheels on the bus, so to speak. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think that's what, again, really motivates me with WellSpirit. On one hand, being that support system for women, but also using it as a vehicle to really champion change in the workplace as well. And I think that starts with helping women becoming the natural and emboldened leaders that they can be in the workplace. And with every woman that's creating change in the workplace, it's opening pathways for all of the women to follow. And the more confident we can have women leaders, the more that they can feel emboldened to ask for and create change for themselves and for their teams around them. And that's contagious leadership in itself, right? But definitely I want to spark the conversations and start to change the narrative around what career and family looks like. Because one of the interesting insights is that it's really hard to know, who on LinkedIn is actually a mother, because people hide it in the workplace. And I really want to start challenging that and changing the narrative, because actually the more we hide behind it, the less that can inspire change to actually happen in the workplace as well.
Yeah, phenomenal work, absolutely. And so do you, when you think around that idea of people hiding it, do you feel like that is it a conscious choice by people to sort of hide it because what's the fear, what might happen?
No, look, absolutely. I think, there is potentially that's still a societal expectation that, mothers may be more family focused, family oriented, and less inclined to continue their career. But we're really, I guess, in that massive transition where we're seeing even more female leaders, more mums being leaders. But at the same time, the narrative hasn't really changed as much. And I think that's what we've got to create that story and that shift as mums. And the more we can openly talk about our experiences to each other as mums, then the more we're likely to feel courageous enough to talk about those experiences in the workplace. And therefore, the more we talk about it, the more the leaders in the workplaces can empathize and sympathize and really understand what we need to support us as mums in the workplace.
Yeah, it's that ripple effect, isn't it? Like, it's literally generational change, right? Like,
Absolutely.
What you would have experienced in your years of, returning to corporate work after, your time out with motherhood and whatnot, versus now what I'm imagining be quite different even in that period of time. So then, my goodness, if we wind the clock forward another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or what have you, I mean, let's hope, of course, and we can't always rely on hope, but what could possibly happen or have happened if this work continues and people, the visibility, it has to be more visible so that people can see it. If they're not seeing it, then it's never gonna change anything. So we have to help people to feel confident to back themselves that that's okay. Yeah,
absolutely. And I just really want to see flexible work more commonplace. And I think some workplaces are really embracing it. We've seen companies embrace a 4-day working week, such as Unilever, with really great results. It just at some point hasn't gone that next step, and I think it's ours for the taking, but we have to also play a part in changing it from the ground up, whilst there's other organizations and companies trying to change it top down as well. So
yeah, it's interesting because I certainly find a lot of women that I work with, they absolutely would have that belief, and it's not to put blame on them in any way, but it's this belief that, well, the leaders should lead the way and be and make those changes. It's not my job to do that. And what I try to work with them on is to encourage them to see how their input, their impact, well, their input and influence could actually have a really big impact in being that change that they want to see. But again, it takes the confidence to kind of put your neck on the line and be the the subordinate, right, in the hierarchy, that seemingly speaking up and challenging the status quo and managing up, which again isn't easy for everyone to do, but
I mean,
that's it.
it's really tough, right? And it depends on workplace culture. It depends on your manager. But I also hope that through the safe space I create, women can be more transparent with each other. And that's around the conversations of actually, I've managed to navigate this with my manager and this is how I did it. Or this is the policy that my workplace has. Another woman like, hang on, my work doesn't have that. Why not? So the more transparency of what great looks like and what can be, then again, that can help people just that little bit, be a little bit more confident when it comes to their turn to ask for something. And that's a technique and a skill in itself, right? How to negotiate, how to ask. Again, that's why I sort of think the more toolkits and scripts that we can help equip women with to really position themselves and position what they're asking for as a win-win for the company and for themselves, then hopefully that's a step in the right direction and helping everyone.
Yeah, and you've said it directly and kind of referred to it or inferred to it a number of times in what you've shared today, Philippa. But it's that idea of no matter whether it's leaning into a network such as what you've created with WellSpirit, or just talking and sharing your experience with somebody or with somebody else, so that you know that you're not alone. You knowing that you don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to figure it all out by yourself. It's the same for me in business. Most people in business, you don't have to do it alone. That's not the expectation. In fact, nobody great that's ever achieved anything great, at least, has done it alone for the most part. They've leaned on someone at numerous times in the journey to get to where they have got. But absolutely, the power of sharing and the power of building that confidence through knowing that you're not alone. And actually, this is normal. This is normal that we experience this. Okay, this makes me feel a little bit better about myself. It's so powerful, isn't it?
It is truly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Philippa, I'm conscious of our time. I think we'll start bringing it to a close relatively shortly. But one thing I really wanted to understand and ask from you is just what advice would you give to somebody, right, that maybe in this situation of wanting to or maybe navigating work, wanting to improve their influence, maybe their impact, their confidence. In addition to anything that we've shared already, what would you say? What would you advise?
I think it's about acknowledging what you've accomplished already. So it's around really knowing what your strengths are and recognizing your strengths. It's having that self-awareness that you've created so many achievements in your life that you keep reinforcing those in your mind to really hone that mindset of who you are and your self-worth and what you have to give to other people. So it's really around just finding those techniques that can help reinforce your confidence and your mindset. Definitely. So you feel comfortable taking on challenge. You feel comfortable leaning into risk, because I think that can really help you be even more of that authentic leader that maybe you're aspiring to but holding back, or maybe that leader that can be really decisive and bold in the meetings that you attend and the connections, the relationships that you're forming with colleagues or senior stakeholders.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and leaning into the true understanding for yourself what the true value is that you bring, and I find it particularly for high achievers. I work with a lot of high achieving women and kind of the worse for it. It's ironic, but it's like you've achieved so much, but yet the confidence is low. Deep down, the confidence is low. And they can very easily forget what got them to where they are. You said it at the very start of our conversation today. Forget what got them to where they are and step into a new role or a new situation, I'm now a mum, I've got to juggle this, and suddenly just be like, well, I'm starting from scratch, I don't know anything now, and really have that doubt that kicks in, again, that you mentioned at the start for yourself in your journey, that is warranted but actually not really founded upon very much. And so tuning back into that value, tuning back into what your strengths are, what you do actually bring to the table, and leveraging those things rather than shying away from them is and doing that repeatedly and consistently, so that you can build that practice and routine around doing that to again compound that confidence is such a good piece of advice. Such a good piece of advice, and can be game changing. I see it all the time in women and men. I mean, I work with women largely, but men too. And I think there's also, whilst men I won't go there. I was going to say men can't have children. I don't want to even open that can of worms. But in this day and age, but I see the lack of confidence in men as well as women. I think there is this big perception or idea that it's really just in women, and men are super confident and whatnot. Like, I see it in men all the time. Imposter syndrome, doubting themselves, and C-suite, very highly experienced individuals. And you're nodding. I'm sure you've seen it over your career too. Yeah, but really, really great tips and advice, and I really appreciate you sharing your journey, Philippa, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, of course, but seeing how WellSpirit continues to evolve, and the many women that you continue to support through that navigating motherhood and work and careers and building that community, which is fantastic, really, really cool. So thank you so much for your time in sharing all of that with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And all the best for your future podcasts.
Yeah, thank you. And Philippa, last thing, if people want to find out more about WellSpirit or connect and lift the lid on that, where can they find it? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. They can follow us on LinkedIn at WellSpirit, or check out our website at www.wellspirit.com. We're first starting out focusing in helping and supporting mums in marketing, but we'll be expanding beyond that in the near future. So can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, because mums in marketing, that's your background, of
it's
course.
My background.
The challenges are the same, right? Like, it's the same, whether we're in financial services, marketing, accounting, goodness me, whatever, the challenges are the same. So yeah, that sounds like a fantastic plan for sure. Yeah, alrighty. Well, we will wrap it up there. Philippa, I wish you a very, enjoyable rest of your day, rest of your week, and to everyone listening and tuning in, thank you so much for doing so. Have a great rest of week wherever you are and whenever you're listening, and we'll be back very soon.